Hello all, and welcome to the City Council Forum on Culture and Arts for Manhattan Districts 7, 9, and 10. We know that you have a lot going on and there could possibly be some Zoom fatigue going on, so we really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. I am Melanie Green, artist and director of programs at New Yorkers for Culture and Arts. We are a cultural organization that focuses on advocacy to ensure a vibrant space for arts and culture for all New Yorkers. I am coming to you from the former land of the the Sequoia, and the Chickasaw people. And I am a Black woman. I have a white background behind me and a window, and I use she, her pronouns. Currently, my accessibility needs are being met. So tonight we have ASL interpretation, as well as closed captioning if you are with us here in the Zoom platform. And we also have the chat open both in Zoom and for all those who are watching in via YouTube. Welcome. Just to say that we really want to encourage no hate speech in the chat, please. Be kind, be respectful. And what we want to really encourage are for folks to please share questions, impressions, and additional thoughts they have about any of the topics discussed. So I would like to thank the NY4CA team for helping making this production what it is. We have done a marathon of them. And so just want to thank the team again for all of their hard work, including Lori Berg, Lucy Sexton, Tara Sheena, we have Regine Peters, and with Sam Ogilvie, as well as our partners. On this particular forum, we have Advance More Opera, African Voices, Harlem Stage, and People's Theater Project. Tonight, we have the pleasure of having the amazing moderator, Kim Singleton, who is the board member of African Voices, as well as the host for the TV show, Consider It Blacklit. Now, I know you are all excited to hear from our candidates, but before we get started, we want to let you know that we have one more forum coming up next week for Queens Districts 19, 20, 27, and 31. That'll be May 27th. And if you want any information about that particular forum or any of the past 8 that we have done, you can visit www.ny4ca.org/advocacy, and you can look at the archives of the previous forum and also register for the forum that we have next week if you are interested. All right, now without further ado, I will pass it over to Kim. Again, thank you all so much for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the City Council Forum for Manhattan Districts 7, 9, and 10 on Culture and Arts, hosted by New Yorkers for Culture and Arts, and in partnership with Advance More Opera, African Voices, Harlem Stage, and People's Theater Project. My name is Kim Singleton, and I am thrilled to be here this evening. I'm going to begin with an accessibility check by giving you a visual description. I am an African-American brown-skinned woman. I wear my hair in cornrows going back. I have on a yellow shirt, and I'm sitting in front of a gray backdrop. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'd like to acknowledge that I am currently located in the original Lenape-Hoking territory, now known as New York City. The COVID-19 pandemic has disproportionately impacted cultural organizations, cultural workers, and artists. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the arts and culture sector generated $110 billion in economic activity in New York City with a workforce of over 300,000. For the city to bounce back, it needs a strong cultural sector. And today we're excited to hear from our Manhattan City Council candidates about their views on the arts, culture, and our great city. Just a reminder that this election will use ranked choice voting. So instead of casting a single vote for a single candidate, voters in a ranked choice system select a set number of candidates in order of preference. We will put links in the chat for more information. This evening, we will ask candidates questions from the New Yorkers for Culture and Arts candidate questionnaire. We invite each candidate to take 30 seconds to say their name, pronoun, and provide a visual description and 1 or 2 sentences about their history with culture and arts. After the introduction, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to a question. If time allows, we will do a follow-up question with each candidate. If you'd like to know more about the candidates' responses to the questionnaire, they will be posted on the New Yorkers for Culture and Arts website. The URL will be posted in the chat. The chat is open, so we also encourage candidates to converse with guests. While we cannot promise to get to every question posted in the chat, we encourage the discussion and will be monitoring it both on Zoom and YouTube. Please be respectful with all of your comments. We also want to let you know that the order of the candidates and the questions they will be asked have been chosen at random to ensure fairness. So let's get started. We will start with District 7. This includes Manhattan Valley, Manhattanville, Morningside Heights, and Hamilton Heights. We invite each candidate again to take 30 seconds to say their name, pronouns, and provide a visual description. After the visual description, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to a question if time allows. We will have follow-up questions. So first we have Carmen Quinones. Welcome, Carmen. Please come on and introduce yourselves, providing your name, pronoun, and visual description.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Carmen Quinones. Again, I'm running for City Council here in the 7th Councilmanic District. You must forgive me. I just came running. So I'm almost out of breath here. I am, again, I have blue on. I love blue. It's royalty. I think it's it says a lot about a person. It says blue. So I don't have too much to say right now because I'm out of breath. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll get right into the question.
Yes.
Healthcare is a pressing issue for individual artists, culture workers, and small cultural groups without resources for major coverage plans. This impacts disabled artists, workers, and organizations, in addition to many people suffering from the effects of COVID. In communities hardest hit by COVID, health outlets are closing. For instance, in Brownsville, Brooklyn, there has been a recent closure announcement of a long-standing family and women's health clinic. What is your plan to address the healthcare needs of the city's many communities? You have 90 seconds.
Sure. I think the first thing we need to do is make a citizens task force, and also make sure that all healthcare agencies within our district, we make a task force for them, because healthcare is a human right. Most of our healthcare agencies do not have the tools that they need. We saw that with COVID-19, how vulnerable we became. And so we definitely need to make a task force of citizens and also a task force of all healthcare agencies that are in the district. So that they can better tell you exactly what we need. But we definitely need to fund them more than we've been doing right now. We really got to get funding in here. We talk about free healthcare, but you know what? We can talk about it. The reality is we don't have free healthcare, and people are suffering, especially disabled people, people that are working. It's hard to get to a doctor. Just the cost of medicine is horrible. You have to think about whether you're going to pay for your medicine or you are going to die of starvation. So that is something we really have to really address, and that is the funding of our healthcare system.
Thank you. Carmen, I'd like to give you a follow-up question.
Sure.
Currently, it's hard for cultural organizations in marginalized communities to get grants for general operating costs from the Department of Cultural Affairs. How can we help stabilize or otherwise support cultural groups in under-resourced communities?
Again, I really believe in task force. I think that the citizens that of our district should definitely make a task force for uh, all those cultural institutions that are in that district, and they should be the ones at the head of the table telling us exactly what we need. We don't need elected officials, and I'm sorry, but we don't need elected officials to tell us what we do need. We need the cultural institutions. I mean, when I grew up, I had everything. We had music, we had poetry, we had it all. I've got 19 grandchildren and have to fight to get them in a dance class or to get them anything. I mean, come on. We need a task force, and I believe in every district for cultural and arts, for healthcare, and we need our citizens to do it. We need our citizens at the table stating what we need. And so cultural institutions are a must. That is what our children thrive on and live on. And we must make sure that they have access to poetry, that they have access to libraries, that they also have access to dance and anything. And we shouldn't have to be charging them an arm and a leg. We can do this on our own by having our culture institutions tell us what they need, not anybody else, but them. The task force should be the art and culture institution, and we should listen to what they have to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, we're going to move on to District 9. I think our other candidate is running a little late in District 7. So District 9, this includes Central Harlem, Morningside Heights, Upper West Side, and East Harlem. Again, we invite the candidates to take 30 seconds to say their name, pronoun, and provide a visual description. After the visual description, you'll be asked a question and you have 90 seconds to respond. So up next, we have Joshua Clennon.
Good evening, everyone. Could you please, could you please explain to me what should be included in the visual description? It's my first time given something like that.
Describe who you are, what you're wearing, and maybe your background.
Okay, awesome. So my name is Joshua Clennon. I'm running for city council in the 9th district. I'm a young Black man. I'm born and raised in the village of Harlem. I'm a leader on Community Board 10, where I serve as treasurer. And I'm a co-chair of economic development for the NAACP Mid-Manhattan branch. I work in affordable housing, managing low-income housing cooperatives in the Harlem community to maintain affordability and long-term equity and generational wealth for residents in my community.
Okay, thank you. So my question for you, okay, as of March 2021, just 4% of shuttered creative businesses have returned to normal operations. The federal relief offered by the Shuttered Venue Operators Grants will only help an estimated 10% of the creative economy. Micro businesses, i.e. the sole proprietor artists or small artist-led organizations, are particularly vulnerable. This is a huge loss for our city's economy, where the creative sector generates $110 billion in economic activity. Arts and culture have led recoveries in the past, enlivening the hollowed out industrial neighborhoods in the 70s and bringing people back downtown after 9/11. What do you foresee is the role of creative economics in supporting economic recovery in New York City, particularly for communities most affected by environmental, housing, and health instability due to COVID, including our aging, immigrant, and working class communities of color? You have 90 seconds.
Absolutely. So want to take advantage of this time. Harlem is, the cultural mecca of Black America. So the creative economy is really the fabric of the Harlem community. Whether you look at the Apollo Theater, National Black Theater, there's nothing but arts and culture in our community. What we need to do to really make sure that we allow the arts and culture community to really bounce back is pass legislation to have a public municipal banking system here in New York City, so we can get direct capital to micro entrepreneurs, to arts and culture institutions to help them recover from this economic downturn. We also need to look at zoning. We need to have a comprehensive approach to zoning in our city to create more live, work zoning to allow artists to flourish, create more artist districts so they can have residential space, but also home studios. We also need to expand the New York City CARES Act to include our local artists, freelancers, to make sure that they have access to health coverage, to ensure that everybody is protected, that we guarantee healthcare as a human right to protect people in advance of the next pandemic that we might be facing.
Thank you. Okay, next, give me 1 second, I'm sorry. Okay, Joshua, I'd like to give you a follow-up question. How would you evaluate proposals for capital projects for the arts in your district? Are there ways your office will ensure that cultural capital projects are community informed all the way from design to implementation?
Absolutely. So at the forefront of our housing platform is really having a community-driven approach to all land use and development, making sure that we're involving all residents in our community, every stakeholder, and any zoning decision that's taking place, and really looking at it from a comprehensive approach rather than the city's current existing way where they do these piecemeal rezonings that have, dramatic domino effects for surrounding neighborhoods. So we really want to look at it from a big picture scope in terms of our entire district and how that will affect people across Harlem, across our city, so that we can establish long-term capital plans that really meet the needs of people who live in our neighborhoods, who work in our neighborhoods, and plan to be here for the long haul.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Up next, we have candidate Athena Moore. Athena, please introduce yourself, providing your name, pronoun, and a visual description. You're on mute.
Okay. Hello, my name is Athena Moore, and my pronoun is she, her, hers. I certainly am grateful to be here today. You asked that I also share a brief statement about myself. Yes, I am a mom, a proud Democrat. I certainly am an artist. I am a poet, a dancer, and I call myself a culture keeper. I have been serving in Manhattan as the director of the Northern Manhattan office for the Honorable Gail Brewer, Manhattan Borough President, for the past 7 years. And in that capacity, I've served as a liaison to multiple Harlem-based cultural arts institutions. Those include those that are focused on music and song and dance, but it's also been a liaison to those who have been nonprofits and bridge builders in the arts community.
Yeah, thank you, Athena. The city has a qualified legion of teaching artists, totaling over 4,500 educators. Yet 67% of New York City principals stated that funding for the arts is generally insufficient. Currently, New York City does not meet state mandates for arts in every public school. Yet arts education in schools has been shown to improve academic and social, emotional outcomes for students, especially when provided as an integrated part of the curriculum. What is your plan for the city's school system, and what is your vision of the role that arts in education plays? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you so much. So arts and education are near and dear to my life's work as well as my personal journey. I am someone who's always advocated for allocation of budget resources to schools in the Harlem District 9 community, as well as across the borough of Manhattan. I will continue to advocate for equity in our schools to make sure that we have resources and professional development and training for our educators and our teachers, but also to make sure that the curriculum reflects arts and culture prioritization for our children and our youth. It is critical at this time that we also make sure that we have an education that is comprehensive, that not only meets the social and emotional needs of our students, but also that meets their cultural needs. In order to do that, we must have culturally competent staff, employees, as well as administrators. So my commitment will be to continue serving in the capacity of the city council member to support these efforts.
Thank you, Athena. And I'd like to give you a follow-up question. Manhattan is home to many individual artists currently suffering high unemployment. How can we get relief to them?
Yes, so I definitely have been talking about the American recovery efforts that are underway. You've heard us discuss the fact that President Biden has given a plan, and this plan has included ensuring that relief in the form of funding and unemployment supports and resources for housing continue to come to local communities. So I will, as a council member, continue to support those efforts. I will specifically support funding for arts and culture organizations. I work long-standing with many of them, like the National Black Theater and the Dance Theater of Harlem, but also for schools like the Harlem School of the Arts and the Apollo Theater. And I will continue to make sure that through the budget process that we have allocation of resources and information to those who are trying to access those resources. One of the efforts that I've worked on is making sure that housing supports are in place for those who need them. Typically in this pandemic, many artists have been struggling and have lost their jobs as a result of being in employment that has been low wage in some cases, or employment that has been inconsistent. Some of them has been gig workers, and they have not had the consistency that's needed to sustain themselves. And so I will continue to be a supporter for those individuals, those artists who are in need. I know that during the pandemic, many also suffered from not having access to resources that could have helped them to be more secure in the things that they need for their communities.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Excuse me, give me 1 second. Okay, we have more candidates that came on. Let's see. Okay, is Carmen De La Rosa here? So I'm going to go on to District 10, and that includes Washington Heights, Inwood, and Marble Hill. Again, we invite the candidate to do a 30-second introduction that includes their name, pronoun, and a visual description. After that, you'll be asked the question and you have 90 seconds to answer. So Carmen, please introduce yourself.
Okay, let me start my video. Hi, I'm Carmen De La Rosa. I'm a candidate for District 10 in Upper Manhattan, the communities of Inwood, Washington Heights, and Marble Hill. A visual description of me is that I am a woman, curly hair. I'm wearing a red shirt and a black sweater, and I have a beige background. And so I am running for city council in District 10. This district is home to many artists, many gig workers, and I am one who believes and has worked. I have been the assembly member for the last 4 years in this community, and I am one that believes that in order for our communities to recover, we must have a just recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, and that includes prioritizing artists, prioritizing gig workers, as a matter of priority and not as an afterthought. In the assembly, I have worked to make sure that we are properly funding arts within our schools, that we are supporting local nonprofit organizations that include uplifting the arts, and that we are promoting arts and culture here in Upper Manhattan, because the diversity of our communities is very ingrained in what is the arts and culture in Upper Manhattan. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. We also have from District 10, Johanna Garcia. Johanna, please introduce yourself, providing your name, pronoun, and visual description.
Hi, everyone. I'm making sure my video's on. Hi, everyone. So my name is Joanna Garcia. I am running for District 10. Those neighborhoods, again, as Carmen mentioned, include Marble Hill, Inwood, and Washington Heights. I am, I guess, a shade of brown, caramel skin, Afro-Latina. I have longish hair. And it's a little sweaty. I apologize, it's humid outside. And so that means I'm a little shiny on the skin. And I am wearing a blue, kind of like a royal blue shirt, and a heather gray jacket with blue earrings. And if you look closely enough, my background is like a very light lavender color with a patch of white because my kids ran out of paint.
Great, thank you. So data shows that neighborhoods with cultural assets have improved outcomes in everything from education and aging to community well-being and safety. Yet nonprofit cultural groups often lack resources for long-term stable locations in the city's fluctuating real estate market. And artists and cultural workers need affordable live/work spaces. What is your plan for creating healthy, stable communities? How do you envision enlivening vacant commercial and city-owned spaces? You have 90 seconds.
Is that for me again?
Yes, that's for you.
Okay, I wasn't sure. So first of all, we have to really bring budget justice to every level of government. And that's why I fought really hard for budget justice on a state level. I am currently the chief of staff to State Senator Jackson. I also want to say that I am a visual artist. I am an alum of LaGuardia High School for the arts. So I am that mom that celebrated every single scribble, every single sound from a flute that my kids made. I really believe in the arts, just making life better. So we need to invest wholeheartedly in our communities. That's how you provide stability. You have many artists who have to think about how they're going to feed their families, how they're going to pay their rent. And we need to make sure that we invest in programs that support them. We also have too many artists who are struggling with their health. And what I mean by health is figuring out how they have access to health. So we definitely need to pass legislation. And I am working on that as chief of staff in the state Senate to make sure that that is a given right. Listen, the economic recovery cannot just be about the math and the science and the engineers. Those are important in our neighborhoods, but we have to make sure that we bring the arts as an option, not just to enrich our lives, but also as a viable option where artists can survive and thrive doing what they're passionate about.
Thank you. Thank you. At this time, we're going to take a short break and you will be blessed with a special performance. Wasn't that fantastic? That was a beautiful performance. Now we will continue with our questions. We will continue with District 10. And next we have up James Bear. James, please introduce yourself by providing your name, pronoun, and a visual description.
Hello, everyone. I'm James Bear, one of the candidates. You asked about my identity. Well, meet my roommate. I'm an attorney, I'm a writer, a college professor, been involved with the Democratic Party for many years. I'm also a Juilliard graduate, master music degree in piano. That's my identity since I was 8 years old. If you want someone to really bring the arts up and a high priority, I'm your guy. Mozart. No one knows more about the arts than I do. I teach it. This has been my life. I teach kids as young as 5. I teach adults. If you want a guy who really is going to turn the system upside down and bring arts back to the city, I'm the guy. Like the guy who graduated from Juilliard. No one knows more about the arts than us.
Thank you, James. Thank you. So on March 2021, just 4% of shuttered creative businesses have returned to normal operations. The federal relief offered by the Shuttered Venue Operations Grants will only help an estimated 10% of the creative economy. Micro businesses, the sole proprietor artists, or small artist-led organizations are particularly vulnerable. This is a huge loss for our city's economy, where the creative sector generates $110 billion in economic activity. Arts and culture have led recoveries in the past, enlivening the hollowed out industrial neighborhoods in the 70s and bringing people back downtown after 9/11. What do you foresee is the role of creative economies in supporting economic recovery in New York City, particularly for communities most affected by environmental housing and health instability due to COVID, including our aging, immigrant, and working class communities of color? You have 90 seconds.
A good question. The arts have been devastated by COVID. Orchestras, Carnegie Hall, Broadway have been shut down because of COVID, and people out of work. What a disaster. If you're a violinist or a dancer or Broadway singer, what the heck do you do? The first thing we have to do is to revive the Broadway industry, get the tourists back. That's 250,000 jobs. We have thousands of people working at Broadway. We have to get those shows working. The other thing we have to do, of course, is to make sure that Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, all of those are back on track. One of the things we can do is to actually start building the arts in our own school systems in New York. They've been devastated for decades in terms of not being funded properly. And I've written about this in my book, America on the Verge. I have a whole chapter on bringing the arts back. It's called The Fine Arts at Cabinet Level. And I think this makes the point. A national program at cabinet level with a man or woman actually sitting next to the president as a part of the National Endowment of the Arts will be expanded and the Department of Education to actually once and for all make sure that there's proper arts education in every school. I grew up in Great Neck. I played jazz music and band, Beethoven and orchestra, Broadway as a trumpet player. We had dance. We had a wonderful program in the suburbs. I've lived here for 20 years. We know that there's absolutely nothing like this in New York. My plan to get funding for the city, the state, and the federal government, that every school in the city, elementary, junior high school, has at least 2 full-time teachers. Think about the thousands of jobs that we will create. Think about the tens of thousands of people who will love the arts, support them, go to concerts, buy tickets, go to shows. No one wants this more than I do. As an attorney, as a political activist, I know how to get things done, and no one cares more about it than the Juilliard graduate. I have a plan. I welcome anyone looking at the book. 20 pages of an outline of how to go about it. I'm the real thing when you want real arts in the school and education and restoring where they should have been as they were 50 or 100 years ago. It's a disgrace what's going on. We need to change it. You need to elect politicians, real leaders who know what the heck they're doing. And I'm that guy.
Thank you, James. Thank you. I actually want to go back to Carmen. My apologies. I didn't get a chance to ask your question. So educational programs for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated populations that include sustained arts program has led to improvements in managing emotional states, building confidence and communication skills, and increasing civic engagement. What are your plans for supporting incarcerated and formerly incarcerated New Yorkers? You have 90 seconds.
Well, thank you for the question. I think it's so important to look at the arts in a holistic and healing way. Part of my work as a state legislator who sits on the corrections committee has been to undo the harms that mass incarceration and the carceral system has had on communities like ours in Upper Manhattan. And so for me, when I think about incarcerated people and what we could be doing to support them, it's a two-prong approach. Number one is once they leave incarceration, making sure that they have access and that they don't have obstacles for stable housing, for employment. The arts is definitely plays a role in this vision, because the arts has been part of the resistance since the beginning of time. When we talk about the civil rights movement, when we talk about the student movement, the arts has been at the center and at the heart of those movements. And I believe that now we are dealing with a reckoning on race and police accountability in our communities, and the arts is once again at the heart of that. So arts for me is therapeutic. It's part of what our plan should be for furthering the educational options and availability for formerly incarcerated people. And it's also a way of making sure that we're creative in the way that employment opportunities are available for people who have been incarcerated. So I'm looking forward to having a sprinkling of the arts throughout our plans for Upper Manhattan and in the city council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to give you a follow-up question. How would you evaluate proposals for capital projects for the arts in your district? Are there ways your office will ensure the cultural capital projects are community informed all the way from design to implementation?
That's a great question. In previous employment, before I was a state legislator, I was the chief of staff to a city council member for District 10, and I also did the budget. So I know intimately what the budget process looks like, and I agree with colleague Johanna Garcia, who mentioned earlier that we need budget equity, right? So one of the visions that I have on my platform is actually for budget equity, to make sure that number one, all organizations have access to discretionary funding. There's a lot of obstacles in the way if organizations are not 501c3 or they're not bigger umbrella organizations, right? So number one is making sure that there's access and information for people to apply. But number two, we also have to help organizations to build capacity so that they can compete for these grants, opening up these grants so that it's not like a major arts institution versus a smaller arts institution that is trying to really make headway into our communities. I also believe that part of our job as a city council member is to govern with the community, to bring in the local stakeholders, to bring in the visual artists, the gig workers, the theater artists, everyone, actors, everyone into the fold, so that we can have a process that is transparent, that is clear, and that is led by them. You all are the experts on the arts, and it is our job to make this process easier for everyone in our community to have access to these programs, and I'm committed to that.
Great, thank you, thank you. I'd like to circle back with James to give an opportunity for a follow-up question. Manhattan is home to many individual artists currently suffering high unemployment. How can we get relief to them?
Well, following up on Ms. De La Rosa's comments, how do you get relief? We need to get funding for real. And I think it's rather disingenuous for any politician to make claims that they want to do something when for generations everything's been gutted, more of the same thing. I haven't heard anyone talk about an actual program to hire 2 teachers and fund it in every elementary, junior high school, and senior high school. Think about how many thousands of jobs that'll provide. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, getting real funding for the arts, I think that every school should be having an orchestra, should be having a Broadway program, a dance program, and you hire people. You hire thousands of people. I remember when I was working at USTAN as a musical theater director, a dance director telling me how her She was a wonderful actress, wonderfully talented person, and the program was gutted. She didn't get the money. She was let go. She wasn't replaced. This is really what's going on with politicians. They give a lot of lip service, but nothing ever changes. This has been going on for 50 years. And I think that in all due respect, any of the politicians who are running right now are just giving a lot of lip service to this. I mean business. We need to find billions of dollars. We need to get 15, 20%, some percentage of the actual school budget designed for this and hiring people. No more talk about it. Okay. It's very cute to say, I'm going to help out the artists. Get them jobs, get them teaching jobs, get tens of thousands of kids who love the arts. They will grow up as adults. They will buy tickets to shows. You have to build an infrastructure. We need a 20-year plan.
Thank
Nothing's
you.
being done.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have another candidate from District 10 who has joined us, Angela Fernandez. Angela, can you please introduce yourself, provide your name, pronouns, and visual description?
Sure. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Angela Fernandez. I'm running for City Council District 10. I'm wearing glasses. I have long black brown hair, and behind me, I'm wearing a black shirt, and behind me is a sign that says "Y nosotros qué" with my bookshelf.
Great, great. In the COVID crisis, arts and culture were the first to close, and much of the sector will be last to reopen at full capacity. More than 50% of artists and cultural workers remain unemployed. This in a sector where workers are 3.6 times more likely to be self-employed, freelancers, gig workers, and mixed income earners. What is your plan for getting the city back to work, particularly in its hardest hit sectors? What kind of workforce development programs do you envision that would provide access to communities of color and people with disabilities? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you so much for that question. I was the executive director of the Northern Manhattan Coalition for Immigrant Rights for 10 years. And I took that organization from a $300,000 a year budget to a $2.2 million a year budget. And I'm mentioning that because included in that, we created the first worker center in Upper Manhattan, where we screened employers for ensuring that they actually follow the law and that they have a history of treating workers with respect and paying them well and matching them with employees. And it has been a great success in providing up to 1,000 jobs for people in our district per year. We need to do something similar in the arts. Well, one of the issues with the arts is that there are different kinds of funding streams for the arts. Number one, there are arts institutions that depend on grants. And so we have to increase the grants that are provided to the arts. And number two, many of the arts depend on ticket sales for their revenue. Sometimes they have a combination. I think that the government can play a tremendous role in providing free marketing, for example, free marketing on public transportation.
Hi, mommy.
I'm sorry? Oh.
Hello.
Please mute yourself, please, if you're not speaking. Thank you.
In key areas that would actually help arts institutions sell tickets, which would help them also increase their revenue. With regard to workforce development, New York City already has a workforce development program, but unfortunately it is extremely underfunded. It's only a $10 million a year program. We need to absolutely increase it. I would increase it by $100 million per year so that it continues growing. I agree with my colleagues, Carmen De La Rosa and Joanna Garcia, who mentioned that the budget must be just. We must have a equitable budget. And I think that would be one of the ways to do it. And so we have to then have an intentional program that also is geared towards workforce development for artists. The arts has many different types of jobs connected to it, both from the person who's the creative, but then all of the people that support the creative work that may not be directly with the artists. And so that has to also be funded and provide training and job connection within that sector.
Thank you. Thank you. Angela, I'm going to give you a follow-up question. Mm-hmm. What do you need from Manhattan cultural organizations in order to become a vocal and impactful advocate?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? Because I didn't hear it.
What do you need from Manhattan cultural organizations in order to become a vocal and impactful advocate?
So, as someone who led the fight and co-led the fight to create the sanctuary laws that exist in the city today, simply what I would need is the ability to be able to follow your lead. When we passed the sanctuary laws, we were following the lead of people who were in deportation proceedings, who felt that they could come to us in our organization to come to partner and create these laws. So what I would simply ask is the ability to humbly follow what you all want to do, and then utilize all of my skills and access to be able to ensure that we can co-design, whether it be laws or co-design budgetary initiatives, which I've already done in the past, that would actually provide support, help, and allow the cultural organizations to thrive.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to circle back with Johanna. I want to give her an opportunity to get a follow-up question. Arts and culture play critical roles in helping communities heal from trauma. How will you support your constituency, specifically those who have been impacted disproportionately by COVID-19?
So I'm very grateful for that question, because art actually helped heal my trauma when I was 16 years old. I've always said that I am so grateful to have been where I was during a tragedy in my life. I lost my father when I was 16. And it was because I got to do visual art every single day in school that I was able to get through it, that I was able to heal, that I was able to express my grief. And I will tell you right now that I picture myself that when I retire, quote unquote retire, I actually want to run a art therapeutic program for children who have been abused. That's how much I believe in the healing and just the power of the arts for young children. And what I would do is what I've been doing right now. First of all, I just want to state that the way that our schools are set up right now, they don't make room to prioritize the arts. Number one, it's an unfunded mandate. It's a mandate, but the funding is in there to back it up. And we have such a high stakes test culture in our public schools that it does not allow for prioritizing the arts in our children's lives. And I believe that what happens in a school is reflective of the values that we have in their surrounding community. So in terms of making sure that we bring art and we make sure that we lift up art, I will work with community organizations. One of the realities of not-for-profits is that they are awarded contracts via the city, and then they have to fight tooth and nail to get it, or they have to front the money. And it really creates a capacity issue and a cash flow issue. And I think we really need to streamline and help those not-for-profits access the money sooner than later, so they could do the important work that they are meant to do as not-for-profit in our communities.
Thank you. So now I'm going to give a question. I'm going to give each candidate an opportunity to answer this question. The University of Penn's social impact of the arts project in 2017 report shows neighborhoods with vibrant cultural assets see an increase in stronger community and civic engagement, better health, schooling, personal security, and economic revitalization. In the wake of all of the injustices that have come to bear this past year, George Floyd's murder, the exponential rise of violence against the AAPI community, and the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous people of color, how would you address the security and protection of cultural assets in communities of color, many of whom were struggling to survive before the pandemic? So we'll go back to District 7, and we'll start with Carmen Quiones.
Well, thanks for that question. That question is very, very important, especially to me, because since the pandemic in March, we've been giving out food when nobody showed up, when no one was around, when my seniors were in trouble. I am the president of Douglas Houses. I have 3,000 residents. So I'm in the trenches every day, and we've been giving out food, 18,500 pounds of food a month. And we've been, and I have never seen so much devastation like I saw it with this pandemic. And so what I also started doing is to get our kids off the street. Every Sunday we open the doors on so that people can open mic. We have poultry. We have poultry reading. We have singing R&B. Uh, just making sure that people can survive, especially our young people. Mental illness is a big thing, especially in our community today because of COVID. Um, and when you have 30,000 people, uh, you know, your days are numbered actually because every day is something. Just today, um, I had like 5 apartments that were flooded. Um, why I couldn't even answer the questions when I first got here. We just put a vaccination site. I was running from that to come up here to make sure that our people get vaccinated tomorrow. So every
Thank
day
you, Carmen.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was 90 seconds. Thank you for your answer. Athena Moore, would you like to answer the question?
Sorry, I think because we were holding for so long, my video could not start again. Yes, I would. You talked about the protection of our cultural assets, and also in the context of this global pandemic that we're continuing to be impacted by in the arts community. So one of the ways that I have continued to work towards protection of our assets is working in coalition with numerous arts organizations, nonprofits in Harlem, District 9. I will continue to do that as a city council member, but also I've been focused on historian cultural preservation, historic cultural preservation. I've done this with coalitions like the Harlem Cultural Collaborative, as well as organizations like the Greater Harlem Chamber Harlem Arts Alliance. I will continue to make sure that we are investing through the budget, through the City Council's budget process, in resources for arts and culture. You also mentioned that this is a time that we've had to serve on so many different levels. When you first asked the question about unemployment, I wasn't prepared for that because I thought I was going to talk about other aspects of arts and culture. But what I want to add is that I've served over 10,000 constituents in Central Harlem, helping on all different levels to protect and preserve our cultural assets, from affordable housing, which I know we need for our arts and freelancers and those who are gig workers, to helping with food security, such as many of the candidates have talked about today. But I've also helped in terms of unemployment insurance, making sure that the Department of Labor is responsive to those in the arts and culture community. So
thank you, Athena.
I will continue this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Carmen, would you like to answer the question?
Unbelievable.
There's two Carmen, sorry.
I'm sorry, Carmen De La Rosa.
Okay, yes, thank you for the question. I think it's absolutely important for us to be focusing in the protection of our cultural assets. I will say that one of the things that has been at the forefront of the fight for Upper Manhattan has been the fight against displacement. When we talk about the displacement that is happening in the community, it's not just residential displacement, it's also cultural displacement. It's also a displacement of our centers, of our spaces, of our cultural spaces. I have a lot of conversation with local artists, with folks who are part of cultural groups who want to have a home in Upper Manhattan, and unfortunately they're not able to. So one of the things that I think is important in the protection of these cultural assets is also to create hubs so that these smaller groups who are on the verge of developing in our communities also can use these cultural assets as a place to grow. I also think, as Athena said, using landmark status and historic designations is important in order to make sure that these places are preserved, providing financial support and assistance But most of all, it's providing access and opportunity for artists to continue to see our community as a place where they can live, where they can work, and where they can thrive. If artists are here, we will always be able to have a vibrant cultural spaces and vibrant cultural assets. So that's part of our plan. And we're looking forward to continuing to work with the community to make this a priority in preservation of our entire community.
Thank you. Thank you. Angela, would you like to answer the question?
Wow. Wow.
Yes, I would. Oops. Yes, thank you. I would absolutely. I think that one of the consistent themes that I hear from artists, many of them who are my friends here in Upper Manhattan, is that they say, "Why do I need to leave the neighborhood to go and rent an affordable studio to be able to either rehearse or to take photographs? Or why do I have to go to Brooklyn to actually collaborate with other artists in places where they actually have spaces to be able to collaborate?" We have incredible spaces uptown, but they are not accessible to our local artists. And what I mean by accessible, I mean, number one, having just the permission to be able to use some of these spaces, number one. And number two, once we can get permission, which I think we should be really pushing for that, because a lot of these spaces are actually benefiting from their non-for-profit status or benefiting from landmark status, they should also be affordable to these artists. So I think for me, it's very clear and it's very simple. It is use the assets that we already have, but actually make them accessible and remove the barriers. And I'll name one of them, the United Palace. A beautiful space that has tons of small dance studios where you can practice. That should be open to the community, but it is not. And I would like to change that as the next city council member.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have Johanna. Would you like to answer the question?
Yes. Hi. I think that the most valued assets are the artists themselves, and certainly space is a part of it. But the key word here is actually giving value to the arts and culture. It's been devalued because other things have taken priority. The reality is that we are talking about communities, Black and Brown communities, that are living in crisis. And oftentimes when you're living in crisis, it's hard to think of anything else. But paradoxically enough, it is the arts that will bring liberation to the mental health, just feeling good and starting to look at what economic recovery in a creative way looks like in our community. There is an absence of valuing the arts even as an answer to addressing gun violence, for example. There are programs like Artistic Noise that do great work with children, students, youth who are on probation, and arts is a very liberating way of bringing them back. We do have many, many, many cultural aspects in our community that people do not know about. We need to start singing the praises and elevating and marketing. And we need to prioritize those dollars. We need to prioritize the dollars in terms of our state and our city funding. I did that when I was legislative budget director as well as chief of staff in the city council, now in the Senate. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Johanna. That's your time. Thank you. Now we would like to go to James Baer. Would you like to answer the question, James?
Indeed, I would. I'm one of the real things, okay? I teach at the college level this stuff. I'm a pianist. Government doesn't give anything to us guys. You give us a lot of talk. I'd like to hear some of these people with all their talk. How about doing some serious lobbying in Albany, because some of you have that ability, to get $200 million sent to the city of New York to hire a teacher to teach Broadway, to teach music, to teach dance in every school in the city. Elementary, middle, senior. How about lobbying to get bills so that we can get the same resources that I had when I was growing up in the suburbs? We had an orchestra, we had a band, we had Broadway, we have dance. We don't have any of that in the city. I'd like to hear some of you candidates actually talk about hiring us guys, getting thousands of teachers hired and getting the teachers to learn these things, the kids to learn these things. I want to hear, want you to go on the record, are you willing to lobby in Albany to get $340 million for the city of New York? And are you willing to push, since Albany controls the Department of Education, push the city of New York, our education department, to actually put aside $100 million of its enormous $25-30 billion budget? How about actually taking some actions instead of giving us a lot of lip service? Go on the record right now. Go to Albany and say, we're going to try to get some bills passed and we're going to lobby. Go ahead. Can any of you say that? Because that's the sort of legislator I'll be. I'll be pushing hard to get actual money from Albany and from the federal government. Can you go on the record and say it right now? Will one of you agree with me for once? Just once, give me some credit for having a brain.
James, it's Angela. I agree with you. I've lobbied Albany and actually got.
You know what?
So
I'm sorry, Angela. I have to cut you off. That's James's time, and we're actually running out of time for the forum. So I would like to thank all the candidates for participating tonight and sharing your views about arts and culture. I'd like to thank the New Yorkers for Culture and Arts for allowing me this opportunity to moderate, and on behalf of African Voices Magazine, thank you. Now I would like to pass this over to Lucy Sexton from the New Yorkers for Culture and Arts.
Kim, I want to thank you. Kim Singleton, you are a star. I really appreciate you hosting this for us. You work with African Voices. You're also the host of your own TV show. Consider it Blacklit. So thank you very much for being here. Thanks to all the candidates for being here and for giving us really thoughtful, interesting, terrific answers. Thank you also for running for City Council. I think it's really great we step in there and do that. I want to give a shout out to our ASL interpreters, Aisha Simpson and Jess Ames. I also want to thank my production team from New Yorkers for Culture and Arts. We have one more City Council forum to go. That is next week we're doing 4 districts in Queens. So please go to ny4ca.org to check that out. Thanks to our producer, Melanie Green. Thanks to our tech producer, Regine Peters, and Sam Ogilvy, and Lori Berg and Tarashina, who all work on these forums. Please go to our website. I put in the link there for questionnaires. So if you want to see how your candidates answered those questions, you can go there, you can figure it out there and read it. Also, if there's other people that you wish saw this forum, we will have it up on our website to be visible as a recorded YouTube forum. So check it out, tell other people to watch it, spread it in your networks, and most importantly, register to vote. The deadline to register to vote is May 28th. Make sure everyone you know registers to vote. This is an incredibly important election. We will turn over almost all of our city government. So it is a really, really impactful election, and we need everybody to vote in June in the primary. That's about it. Thank you for being with us. And please continue on, take care of each other, be safe, and vote.